apart until the day I came home early and found my wife making out with her baby daddy on my couch. So, I taught them the lesson of their lives and let the world watch her ruin herself. My name's William, a mechanic. I've always believed in living simply and taking care of the people I love. I've always done my best to provide for my family. I met Vanessa about 5 years ago. She wasn't just some girl I met randomly. She was special from the start. She was a single mom when I met her, raising her little boy, James, who was about 3 at the time. I could tell right away that she'd been through a lot. Vanessa wasn't one of those people looking for handouts or sympathy, though. She was strong and grounded. She told me about James' father early on, her high school boyfriend. They'd had James when they were just kids themselves, barely 18. At first, they thought they could make it work, but reality hit them hard. Being a teen parent isn't a fairy tale. It's bills, diapers, and exhaustion. And when you're too young to have a steady income or no idea how to handle responsibility, things fall apart fast. She told me they broke up a year after James was born. He stuck around for a bit and tried to help here and there, but he wasn't reliable. She'd been on her own since then, making ends meet however she could. What really drew me to her wasn't just her strength, though. It was how much she loved her son. Vanessa lived for that boy. You could see it in the way she talked about him, and that hit me in a way I couldn't ignore. Our relationship moved pretty quickly. We dated for about a year before we got married. I know some people might say that's too fast, but it felt right. I loved her, and I loved James. I wanted to give them the life they deserved, a stable home, someone they could count on. And for a while, that's exactly what we had. I felt like I was doing what I was meant to do, you know? Building a family, being a husband, and a father figure to James. Looking back, I can see now that maybe I ignored some signs. But at the time, I was all in. Vanessa seemed like she was, too. We weren't perfect, but we were solid, or so I thought. I wasn't supposed to be home that early that day. I'd had a long morning at the shop, and this pounding headache just wouldn't quit. I figured I'd call it a day and rest up before dinner. You know, just a quiet afternoon to lie down. That's all I wanted. But instead, I walked into the moment that split my life into before and after. I opened the front door and right away, something felt off. The house was too quiet, except for this faint sound coming from the living room. At first, I thought maybe Vanessa was watching TV, but as I walked closer, I heard her voice responding to a pounding session. Then I saw them. Vanessa, my wife, sitting there on my couch wrapped up in the arms of her ex, James' dad. His hand was on her leg, her head on his shoulder, and they were so into each other they didn't even notice me standing there. I froze. I don't know if it was the shock or just disbelief, but I couldn't move at first. I don't know what made me do it, but the next thing I did wasn't yell, scream, or even cry. No, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened Instagram. Without a word, I hit live. I stood there recording, my hand steady despite the storm raging inside me. I was quiet, completely still, but my heart felt like it was about to beat out of my chest. They were so caught up in each other they didn't even notice me standing just a few feet away. They were lost in the sweetness of their passion. For what felt like 3 whole minutes, I let the world see exactly what was happening. People were joining the live in droves. Comments started pouring in, but I didn't even read them. All I could focus on was how Vanessa seemed to enjoy every bit of this, the way she closed her eyes to soak everything in, and the undeniable proof of what she'd been doing behind my back. Then, finally, Vanessa turned her head, and her eyes locked on mine. It was like the color drained from her face in an instant. She froze. Her ex noticed a second later, and when he saw me, saw the phone in my hand, the live stream already running. His expression went from smug to terrified in the blink of an eye. They scrambled. She pushed herself off him so fast she nearly fell over, and he practically tripped trying to grab his shirt. "William, this isn't," Vanessa started, but I cut her off. "Don't bother rushing," I said, my voice cold. "It's too late. Everyone's already seen it. You're famous now. I gestured to the phone, still streaming in my hand. Her face crumpled, and she started pleading, her voice cracking with every word. "Please, William. It's not what it looks like. Let me explain." But I wasn't listening. I didn't feel like yelling or arguing. It wasn't worth it. "Here's what you're going to do," I said. "You're going to pack your things, pick up James from school, and never set foot in this house again." She kept pleading, reaching out to grab my arm, but I stepped back. "It's too late for that," I told her. "You made your choice." Her ex, still trying to zip up his pants, looked like he wanted to say something, but I turned to him before he could open his mouth. "And you've got 5 seconds to get out of my house before I grab my firearm." That did it. He didn't argue, didn't even try to defend himself. He grabbed his shoes and bolted out the door like his life depended on it. Vanessa stood there for a second longer, her face streaked with tears. But when I didn't say anything else, she finally went to pack up some of her things, and within an hour later, she left. When the door closed behind her, the silence hit me harder than anything else. I just stood there, staring at the spot where they'd been. And that's when it really sank in. My life as a married man was over. I didn't think much when I hit that live button. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted her to feel a fraction of what I felt in that moment. What I didn't realize was just how fast things could spiral. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Friends, cousins, people I hadn't talked to in years. Some were shocked. Some were trying to make sense of what they'd just seen, and others, well, they just wanted the tea, like it was entertainment. Then, not even an hour later, I got a text from a buddy. "Bro, you're on the front page of XYZ blog." I didn't even click the link at first. I just sat there, staring at my phone, trying to wrap my head around the fact that what was supposed to be a private disaster in my marriage had turned into public gossip. When I finally clicked, there it was, a headline screaming something like, "Mechanic catches wife cheating and goes live." They had screenshots of Vanessa's shocked face, and of the baby daddy scrambling for his pants. The comments were brutal. People didn't hold back. They called her every name under the sun, said I was a legend, or that I should have done worse. It was surreal. My pain, my anger, it wasn't just mine anymore. It was out there for everyone to see. And that's when it hit me. My life had officially gone viral. It didn't take long for Vanessa to start blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, voicemails, you name it, she tried it. I'd see her name pop up, and for a split second, I'd think about answering, about hearing her side. But then I'd remember what I walked in on, and the anger would hit me all over again. There was one voicemail that stuck with me. She said, "Will, please, I made a mistake. Don't throw everything we've built away. Think about James. He needs you." I listened to that one twice before deleting it. And yeah, there was a part of me that felt bad for James, bad for the life I thought we had. But there was a bigger part of me that just couldn't unsee what I saw that day. The one time I picked up her call, I didn't let her get far. She started with, "Will, I'm so sorry," and I cut her off. I told her straight, "Be ready to sign the divorce papers when they come. I'm not spending one more day married to someone who'd do this." Then I hung up before she could say anything else. The fallout for her was worse than I expected. She was getting dragged left and right on social media, in real life. People were calling her out at the grocery store. Her coworkers were whispering behind her back, and even her friends started keeping their distance. She went from being this confident, put-together woman to someone who looked like the world was caving in on her. And I won't lie, there was a part of me that felt a little satisfaction in that. Seeing her face the consequences of her actions? Yeah, it felt good. But at the same time, there was this heaviness in my chest. Because no matter what she'd done, this was someone I once loved. Someone I'd built a life with. Watching her fall apart wasn't just her loss. It was mine, too. I thought filing for divorce would be the clean break I needed. Sign a few papers, pack her stuff, and move on with my life. But no, things couldn't be that simple. The divorce papers ended up taking longer than I expected. 2 weeks turned into a month. And every day that passed, I was still legally tied to Vanessa. Still answering questions from friends and family. Still getting those texts from her. Every single day. When she finally got the papers, I thought she'd just sign them and move on too. I mean, what's there to fight about when the whole world saw what she did? But no, she had the nerve to fight back. She went to court claiming I was the reason she cheated. That I was emotionally abusive. That I pushed her into someone else's arms. Can you believe that? Pushed her? I was the one holding this whole family together while she was sneaking around with her ex. I won't lie, I was angry, like boiling, fists clenched angry. But I knew I had to keep my cool. I had the live stream video, after all. Everyone saw it. There was no way she could spin her way out of that, right? At least, that's what I told myself as I walked into court. Sitting in that courtroom was like stepping into a different world. There she was, Vanessa, sitting across from me with this look on her face, like she was the victim. Like she was the one who got betrayed. Her lawyer stood up and painted this whole picture of a woman trapped in a cold, unloving marriage, forced to find comfort elsewhere. It was surreal. I wanted to laugh, but mostly I just felt numb. I kept looking at her, trying to find the woman I married, the one who used to laugh at my dumb jokes. But all I saw was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had become a stranger, and that hurt more than I expected. When it was my turn, my lawyer pulled out the live stream video. I didn't have to say much. My evidence spoke for itself. Watching the judge's face as they saw the footage gave me a tiny spark of satisfaction. For a moment I thought, this is it. This is justice. But justice isn't as simple as it should be. Despite everything, despite the video, despite her lies, the judge awarded her a settlement. Apparently, her story about feeling neglected was enough to soften their decision. I sat there listening as they talked numbers, wondering how I ended up paying someone to betray me. But I didn't fight it. I just wanted it over. When I walked out of that courtroom, I should have felt free. The papers were signed. The settlement was decided. She was no longer my wife, but instead there was this heaviness in my chest. It wasn't just about the money, though that stung too. It was everything. The betrayal, the time I wasted, the love I gave to someone who didn't deserve it. I'll admit, part of me still hurt for her. Not the woman she became, but the one I thought she was. The woman who held my hand when I was going through tough times at work. The woman who brought me lunch at the shop just because. Losing her felt like losing a part of myself. And that's something money can't fix. I legally got back most of the things I gave her. Even some of the stuff I gave to James. And that might sound petty, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about cutting ties completely. James, that was the hardest part. I'd been his father figure for years, but in the end, he wasn't mine. And as much as it hurt to walk away, I knew I had to. Staying connected to him would have meant staying connected to her. Now it's just me. No baggage, no lies, no second-guessing who I can trust. I'm not going to lie and say I'm over it. I'm not. But I'm free, and that's worth everything I lost. You know, it's funny how life can turn upside down in just one moment. I used to think love was enough to hold a marriage together. I gave everything I had, my time, my energy, my loyalty, to someone I thought would do the same for me. But here's the truth. Love doesn't mean much if the person you're giving it to doesn't value it. I loved Vanessa. I really did. And for a long time I thought we had something real. But I've learned the hard way that you can't stay with someone who betrays your trust, no matter how much history you share. People say forgiveness is for the strong. But sometimes strength means knowing when to walk away. That's what I had to do. For me, now I'm focused on moving forward. I'm not angry anymore. I don't have the energy for that. What I do have is clarity. I know my worth, and I won't let anyone take that away from me again. Life's too short to waste on people who don't deserve you. Anyway, that's my story. What do you think? Was I right to walk away? Or do you think I should have handled it differently? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And hey, if you know someone who might need to hear this, share the video with them. Sometimes, people just need a little reminder that they're worth more than the pain they're settling for.